Alright, so I'm going to do a video on how to plant garlic. This is probably one of the easiest things to do as long as you do it at the right time, which is, for my area, Sacramento, it's any time between September and December, but I feel like October is the sweet spot. And you just want to make sure you get it in the fall so that it has enough time to root and shoot out before the cold of the winter comes. And garlic is a very cold tolerant plant. In fact, it needs the cold to be able to set a nice big bulb. So it's a winter crop. You plant it in the winter, or you plant it in the fall, it goes through the winter, and you harvest it in the summer, the following summer. The main concept of planting garlic is that you want to always select the biggest, best bulbs. So these are two of my biggest, best bulbs. You can see how nice and big they are. This is an Italian variety, but the idea is you're selecting for the best traits. So you're selecting for the best garlic plants that grew in your garden the year before. So of those biggest bulbs, you also want to make sure you plant the biggest cloves. So if you have in the middle of so this is kind of a tiny clove, I'm not going to plant that. This one, it's pretty big, nice and fat. Definitely want that. This one maybe. So what I do is I pick the biggest stuff first. I put everything else aside, and then if I need extra because I still have room to plant garlic, then I'll continue. So you see how big these are. Each of these are cloves. Each of these cloves will make one bulb. So yeah, garlic is a plant that it propagates from the cloves, so it basically makes another plant with the same, or similar genetic makeup as the previous plant. I think there's also a way to have garlic flower and go to seed. It makes these flowers and bulbils, but there's a way to do it. I've never tried it, but this is the easiest thing because you just go from harvest to planting in the same year. So these are kind of small. I'll set them aside. You also want to check and make sure you don't have any soft pieces. You definitely don't want to plant those. That means the garlic is rotting or it's going bad, so you don't want to plant soft. But these are nice and big and hard. So, look at this one. That's a huge clove. Now some people do think you have to do something to help the garlic sprout and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to do anything. You just need to put it in the ground. That's all you have to do. You want to keep, so this, you can see this, it almost looks like one clove, but this is actually two. This is two, and I can sort of tell because there's almost like a seam in here. Now the problem with this is sometimes you can't split these effectively, and I don't want to plant them together because if I do, you'll get two bulbs and they won't grow well together. I mean, they'll grow, but you'll get two bulbs and they'll be smaller. So maybe I'll just use this for cooking. So I'll put it aside unless I absolutely need it, since I should have plenty for what I need. Another thing, there's different varieties of garlic. This is called a silver skin variety. It's what grows better in the southern areas. So silver skin is basically a soft neck garlic. What that means is it doesn't create a hard stalk, and usually soft neck garlics keep for longer because they grow more layers of leaves around the garlic bulb. The more layers of leaves around the garlic bulb, the longer the garlic will store. So these soft neck garlic, silver skin type, they make a lot of layers, so they can usually, some of them can store a whole year until the next harvest. So, okay, now we're gonna move on, start planting. Okay, so I'll be planting in this bed right here. This is actually where I had my tomatoes. I still have a couple of peppers in here. And I just pulled the last of them out of this bed, and I started some beets in here, as you can see. So the beets, I usually plant garlic after tomatoes, but the beets are basically just kind of a second crop because I should be able to get a harvest before the winter or the freezing temperatures come. So I left the room, as you can see, in between the rows of beets to plant the garlic. So I'm going to start the garlic in there. By the time I harvest the beets, then the garlic should be sprouting Then I'll take those out and I'll probably put onions where the beets are. So it'll be onions and garlic in this bed. So, and you can see if like if you do some planting, you can have some nice succession type of planting, you know, where you're planting different crops at the same time. I had these in while I still had tomatoes in here. So now I pulled them out, and where you see the empty spot where I'm going to put the garlic, that's exactly where the tomatoes were planted, the root ball of the tomatoes. So all I do is I dampen this, I wet it down, I sprayed it with a give it a good soak of water, because I want this to be I want the top of the soil, or the soil, to be malleable. And all I'm going to do is I'm not going to dig. I'm just going to make holes, and then approximately 1 to 2 inches deep, and then just drop the garlic in, and that's all I'm going to do. Okay, and this is all I use. This is just a stick that I made into kind of a pointed tip. And all I do is I come here, and I'm gonna do 2 rows next to each other, and everything is gonna be approximately 6 inches from each other. So I'm gonna start here, and this I don't measure, I approximate. Okay. If you plant it too close together, you won't get as big a bulb. So I kind of stagger them. They're 2 rows kind of next to each other. I used to use like a measuring tape or a stick or something and be very anal about it. It doesn't matter. Approximate is fine. What I want to have is at least 6 bulbs per row, maybe 7 if I get lucky. So I'm okay planting. I don't have a problem planting close to these other plants, the beets, because I know that by the time the garlic is growing, these beets are going to be gone. And there's going to be onions there instead. So all I'm doing now is I'm just taking the garlic clove, and you want to put the root side down and the tip up. So the garlic is going to shoot straight out of here and go upwards, and then it's going to shoot roots out of here, which will go down. So this is all you do. So yeah, just put them in. Another thing I'm sort of trying out, I want to try, is to try to determine based on the orientation of the clove, whether it's sideways or straight. Of course, pointing up, but how the growth of the leaf pattern. So garlic grows in sort of a garlic grows just like leeks. So it grows kind of on a plane. Its leaves do. So if you look at this is a leek. So its leaves, they grow on a plane. So they spread out on an individual plane, on a 2-dimensional plane. So I want to see. You can see this leek. See what I mean? Like they're all growing in that plane. So I want to see if planting, if the orientation of planting the clove itself, if it can determine the leaf orientation. So if I plant it like this, I've been looking things up on the internet for this, but I haven't been able to find anything definitive about it, because I think nobody's asked the question. But if you plant it like this, I'm hoping that it'll grow similar to the leek, in the same plane as the leaves that you see on the leek. And that means that instead of spreading out sideways, I can grow it maybe slightly slanted like this, and they'll sort of take up less room, less space in the bed, so that I can more effectively plant onions next to it and do the same thing. So we'll see, we'll try it out. So I'm putting them like this, so hopefully the plane of the leaves will grow in the same as the row. So just making sure they go to a approximate decent depth. So like this, trying to same way. Put a smaller bulb in here because there's not a lot of room. They say you can plant it as close as 4 inches apart. I go for 6 because I feel like I get bigger bulbs, and it's just easier to use it, easier to peel, looks more impressive. 6 inches apart. I was going for about 2 inches in depth. Let's see. These ones I'll do the opposite way. I'm doing all of these the opposite way. I'm putting it sideways, basically, compared to the row. Way back this is just something they just see. Okay. Once you're done doing that, all you do is cover it. Just use a rake or use your hands like this. That's it. You want to make sure the soil is nice and damp, which that'll motivate the clove to start rooting. And then a couple of weeks time, you should start seeing something like this starting to come out. Not all of them, but yeah. These I planted about, I want to say 3 weeks ago. They're coming out, taking a little longer than expected. And there is pebbles. I won't water much more after this, if at all, for the rest of the season, since winter's on its way and the rain will come and the mulch will keep the moisture in. Start watering again in the spring if the conditions are dry.